Welcome to my channel. Today we continue our series of videos, imagining what it would be like to live in ancient times. Specifically today, we're going to imagine what it would be like to live in a Roman tenement. Now, this was the most common form of housing for the vast majority of Romans. And while it may sound appealing to us today to live in an ancient Roman apartment building, as you're about to find out, this is an experience that probably wouldn't last long. Let's get started. No windows, or just a narrow opening with no glass. If it's a good day, perhaps a smear of garum, the sharp, fermented fish sauce the Romans adore. You go to work, of course. There is always work. You might be a laborer, a porter, a shop assistant, perhaps a craftsman if you're fortunate. The rhythm of your day is dictated by sunlight. Most jobs are physical, manual, repetitive. You bend, you lift, reserved for festivals, or for those much richer than you. You return home, expensive. You stare into the dim light, watching the flicker of a neighbor's lamp across the wall. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, stay classy, ancient history nerds. And you wait for sleep, because tomorrow, the same day, begins again, and again, and again. This is life in a Roman tenement, and for most Romans this is all they knew. Carefully, the stairwell is poorly lit, and a misstep could send you tumbling. The city does not stop for the injured. Your room is warm. The day's heat lingers. There is no bath tonight, maybe none this week. You might visit a public bath if you can spare the coin in time, but tonight, you're too tired. The smells of the building rise around you: fish oil, stale bread, wet cloth, unwashed bodies. It's not unbearable. You've lived with it your whole life. It is simply home. You sweat. You ache. It's not delicious, exactly, but it's filling, familiar. Water is fetched from the street fountains. You take a clay jug and queue with others. The aqueducts supply the fountains, but they don't reach inside homes like yours. Only the rich have that luxury. You share a communal latrine somewhere, at street level if one exists. Otherwise, you use a chamber pot. Later, somewhere maybe you will empty it into a cesspit or the street. It's not pleasant work, but it must be done. A wooden shutter rattles in the wind, keeping out neither cold nor heat. The air is thick with the scent of oil, sweat, and the faint tanks of smoke from a brazier below. Even here, in a side alley, you hear the carts rolling over cobblestones, the clatter of hooves, the calls of street vendors selling honeyed nuts, hot wine, roasted chickpeas. There's shouting, laughter, dogs barking, a steady, constant hum. If you fall ill, there is no doctor for people like you. Maybe an herbalist, if you can pay. You can hear the family next door, someone coughing, a baby crying, the clatter of morning bread being broken. But more likely, you'll rely on rest, prayers, and whatever your neighbors can spare. Your ceiling, low. The walls, thin. There is no kitchen in your apartment. Cooking indoors is too risky. Fires spread quickly. The lower floors are for the wealthy, those who can afford space, light, and maybe even a private latrine. So you cook on the street, like everyone else in your building. Or is it the fifth? There's no lift, no plumbing. The stairs are narrow and slanting. A single oil lamp, left unattended, could destroy the whole building. The neighborhood is a web of communal ovens, carts selling porridge and boiled beans, and smoky stalls where eels are fried in olive oil, often dangerously built. Yours is made of brick and wood. You, however, live on the fourth floor. These buildings are everywhere in Rome. Cramped, tall. You have to tread carefully. Fires are a constant fear. Maybe a hunk of barley bread dipped in watered wine. You wake before sunrise. There is no clock. Only the deep hush before the city stirs and the faint rustling of neighbors moving above you. Perhaps lentils, bread, and olives. Meat is rare. Your mattress, if you're lucky enough to have one, is stuffed with straw, worn flat over months of restless sleep. You lie beneath a woven blanket. its corners frayed by time and handling. You are in a Roman insulan apartment block that rises precariously into the city's smoky skies. Your apartment is small, perhaps a single room. Breakfast is simple. The streets, slick with refuse, echo with the slap of sandals and the low murmur of morning voices. The city is loud. By evening, the streets are dim. Oil lamps flicker. Shadows lengthen. Dinner is what you can afford. You settle onto your mat. The boards creak above and below as others do the same. Thank you so much for watching.
You're probably imagining yourself living at the top of a collapsing tenement building in ancient Rome. You're tired of dodging falling plaster and having your dinner interrupted by creaking floorboards. You dream of somewhere else. Anywhere else, really. Well, why not the Egyptian countryside? My friend, step right up to our website and click on Win a House. How many light bulbs does the lease include? Is the water hot enough? Are there roaches? Usually these aren't big deals, but in ancient Rome, a leaky pipe could be deadly. For Marcus Aurelius, that's exactly what happened. In 166 CE, a series of devastating earthquakes shook the city. But sometimes living with your mom is just like living with your mom. Living situation across the Roman Empire varied wildly. Rich folks had villas with gardens and servants. Poor folks might share a single room with multiple families. Soldiers' sleeping quarters were notoriously cramped. But most people lived in apartments like this, rooms stacked on top of each other, usually 5 or 6 stories up. In the bad areas of town, the stairways were dark, the plumbing was gross, and the toilets often didn't work. Being close to your neighbors meant being close to the community. But for people like Aurelius, there were benefits. You saw the same people every day. You participated in civic life. You could ask your neighbor to take care of your pet while you went to work. You could trade gossip and news. But this came with downsides. If your neighbor was a gossiper, your privacy was gone. If he kept prostitutes, you couldn't lock your door at night. If he was a veteran suffering from PTSD, you might get stabbed in your sleep. Life in the Roman tenements was like life in the Roman Colosseum. Survival depended on who you were living near. They destroyed thousands of buildings and displaced hundreds of thousands of people. See you next time. Aurelius couldn't find anywhere to live, but he had responsibilities. He was commander of the Praetorian Guard, a position passed down to his father before him. He couldn't just mope around waiting for a new house. He had to lead his men. So where did he live? Who could help him in his hour of need? His mother. Her name was Faustina the Elder. She owned a tenement, but she wasn't a saint. Tenants complained she was stingy, even accused her of occasionally beating them herself. Faustina believed she deserved to be empress, not her daughter-in-law. But she was Aurelius's mom, and she was charging him an unbeatable price for the room. 0. She didn't charge him anything. Why? Because she wanted his job. So she moved into Aurelius's apartment and stayed there for 10 years until her son took the throne. She'd helped him run his household, manage his finances, and now exercise imperial power. Together, they controlled Rome. He ruled. She watched. They shared one room. Plumbers were rare, repairs even rarer. So when the pipes broke, the people of Rome often went without running water for weeks or months. But if it got too bad, the people themselves fixed the problem. If you had a broken pipe in your apartment building, you and your neighbors would gather together, dig into the wall, and patch it up yourselves. Back then, fire wasn't just a disaster, it was a catastrophe. And if that didn't work, well, you had to deal with it. But you might have noticed something strange about that house. It's actually a tomb. It's better than ancient Rome, though. The buildings were close together. The water supply was unreliable, and the pumps used to empty latrines were notoriously unreliable. It was hard, dangerous work. For those poor souls working at night, fires spread quickly, destroying entire neighborhoods. All it took was one careless citizen, a faulty oil lamp, or just an unlucky wind. The Great Fire of Rome raged for 6 years. Fires were such a danger that neighbors formed fire brigades to fight them. If you lived in a tenement, you would join one of these volunteer groups, usually tied to a local civic association. You didn't do it for pay. You did it because it was expected of you. Maybe you weren't skilled at fighting fires, but you better try your best. Remember, You and your neighbors are responsible for your building, and if the fire spreads, you'll be blamed. Welcome to the worst apartment building in all of history. It's me. This is my channel. And here are 5 reasons why you should never rent an apartment in ancient Rome. Number 5. Watch your head. If you do win that house, you may think you've struck it rich. It's got stunning views, ornate decorations, everything you need for an easy, comfortable life. Plus, it comes with its own garden. But this is a tomb. No, it's not haunted. There aren't ghosts or skeletons rattling around in the catacombs beneath your patio. It's worse. It belonged to a wealthy senator and his family about 2 millennia ago. You turn around and see the statue of a dead guy fall off the wall and crush you to death. They died, probably pretty peacefully, but their bodies stayed put inside the walls. This happened throughout the empire, of course. People lived in the shadow of death. It was inescapable, but it was especially common in Rome. The city was overcrowded, so space was expensive. Families made their homes wherever they could, sometimes inside the tombs of their ancestors. So imagine enjoying a cup of tea in your courtyard. Then you feel the ground shake. In ancient Rome, landlords owned their buildings down to the last nail. You can't always see the danger. It doesn't get much more dystopian than that. No. 4. Don't get creative. Imagine you finally move into your new place. You unpack. You clean up. You put some pictures on the wall. Make a few repairs. Normal things. That is, until the building inspector shows up. If you wanted to install a bookshelf, you needed permission. Even if you were the tenant, your landlord could decide whether or not you could make alterations. It's frustrating now, but it could be deadly then. When you rent an apartment, there are a million little problems you have to deal with. If you tried to hang a picture and accidentally damaged a fresco, you could face serious punishment, possibly execution. In modern Rome, there are about 50 fires every year. Most are small, some turn deadly. We don't want to hear about how hard it is to find a decent apartment. Try getting Caius Vibius Maximus kicked out of his place. He drew political cartoons on the walls, and the owner wasn't happy about it. Apparently it wasn't very good art either. The story goes that the landlord reported him. A senator named Titus Pomponianus took offense, and Maximus was sentenced to death. That makes being a bad tenant in Rome a risky career choice. 3. Listen to the pipes. Number 2. Fire safety. And no, 1 landlord issues. Finding an apartment is tough, especially if you're Emperor of Rome. But that's not the worst of it. Sometimes living with your mom is like living in a horror movie. So thanks for watching. Tune in next time when we look at another real building and wonder what it would be like to live there.